It all started as a common cheating wife story. I was on my way out of town for a business trip, and as I headed out to the runway, I got the call that I wasn't needed. So I headed my private plane back into the hangar and tucked it in. I was sure that I'll need it in the next few days, so I just parked it and headed out. I checked in with my boss, and he and I came to the conclusion that I would just take the rest of the day off. It was almost 4 o'clock, and by the time I get back home, it'll be almost 5:30, the time my wife usually gets home. I'll just surprise her and take her out to supper. I was right about surprising her, but she surprised me more. It seemed that as soon as she heard that I was heading out, she and her friend made a date for the evening and sneaked off work to get an early start. I was puzzled when I saw her car and a strange car next to it in the garage. My garage now fearing what was pretty much a foregone conclusion. I cautiously and quietly entered my home. Sure enough, just like all those stories, I found 4 shoes scattered by the back door, a blast on the steps, up to the bedrooms, and other assorted clothing items leading to the spare bedroom. The door was left open in their hurry to consummate the dirty deed, so I saw them there bare. He was standing next to the bed, and she, my loving wife, was on her knees giving him a BJ. His moaning told me that he was enjoying her efforts, a feeling I knew well. The time walking in from the garage had somewhat prepared me emotionally for this sight, but I still stood there in a bit of shock and disbelief for several minutes. For those of you who think I might have enjoyed this on some level, you are totally mistaken. My wife, the object of my love, trust, respect, and admiration, was on her knees, happily blowing off another man. I had the beginnings of a plan. However, it still took everything I had not to get my gun and blow this carnal intruder's head off. It was actually when he decided that was enough fun for him, as he didn't want to finish in her mouth. That brought me out of my reverie. He was instructing June, my wife, to lie on the bed and spread her legs when I cleared my throat. Cliff? Holy crap. What are you doing here? No. June. The question is, what are you doing here? And who the heck is this jerk? The look on Loverboy's face had rapidly changed from extreme pleasure to extreme panic. He's your husband. I thought you said he was flying out today for an overnighter. I caught her eye and looked into her head deeply for the first time since I've known her. I had resisted doing this for many reasons, and I'll get to those shortly. I commanded her, grab him by his privates, and follow me downstairs now. I grabbed his pants from the floor, looking for his cell phone as she got a death grip on his Johnny, and got out of bed, removing his cell phone from its leather case on his belt. I tossed his pants to the floor carelessly and headed for the living room. I was looking through the contacts list on his phone and found one for home. As I hit the send button to initiate the call, I spoke to him. "What's your name?" "Mark." He responded slowly, not knowing what my game was yet. A woman answered on the third ring, somewhat out of breath. "Hi, Mark," she answered, obviously having seen the caller ID. "I just got home, so don't even try to tell me you're going to be late again tonight or else." Evidently, Mark had failed to make his excuses. I guess he was in a big hurry to jump June's bones. "Mark won't be giving you any such line of crap this evening. Perhaps I should explain why Mark isn't calling you from his cell. Don't worry, he's not injured. At least not yet, anyway." I chuckled. "It seems to me that you might want to come over to my house where I just caught Mark with my wife in an inappropriate act." "What the?" She trailed off, her sentence in shock. After a moment she formed words again. "That lying a hole. Who are you? I kind of thought something might be up. But this. Are you sure? Who was the stupid jerk that tell that two-timing son of a jerk that I never want to see him again? Never mind. I'll do that myself. Where do you live?" I didn't say they were intelligent thoughts, just groups of words. But who am I to talk? I told her to take a deep breath, and then gave her my address, which is only about 10 minutes from where she was. According to her, we can be properly introduced when you get here, and please calm down and don't drive too fast. We wouldn't want to make Mark a widower after all. If anyone deserves to be hurt here, it's definitely not you. Clicking the button, I turned my attention back to the pair of unwilling nudists in my living room. "Stand over there in front of the window." "I don't think so," Mark objected. June just calmly walked over to the place where I indicated, dragging him along, painful cries emanating from his mouth. "Darn, June, let go already. She won't be letting go until I command her to. You see, there are things about me that you don't know. Heck, June doesn't even know." I smirked in a slightly sadistic way. "It seems that we have a bit of time until your wife gets here, so I'll enlighten you both. I have no fear of either of you being able to tell anyone." Their faces showed quizzical looks, followed by a bit of fear. Until I was about 18 years old. I had a perfectly normal, average life to this day. When you look at me, I don't stand out in a crowd. I'm average height, average weight, maybe a tad on the slender side, brown hair and eyes and medium skin color. I'm not handsome, but not ugly either. Wouldn't you agree? It was about that time that I discovered that if I could look someone in the eye for a few seconds, I could plant a thought in their head. This thought could be as innocent as your name is. Albert, if you don't obey every word I say, you will be swallowed by a fire so hot that heck would seem air-conditioned. The last one is what I just put in June's head. As you could imagine, I had a lot of fun with this power, especially after I got used to it, and finally honed my skills. For example, I knew a guy that bullied me around all through high school. On graduation day, he went up to get his diploma, and I had planted a thought that made him think it was accepted behavior to moon the entire crowd. I have enjoyed many a good prank using my power. I even used my power to get out of minor trouble with the cops a couple times. Also, many a young woman came under my spell for an evening of mutual pleasure. First, I would try to score as a normal person would, and if she turned me down in anything but a nice way, she would suddenly change her mind and start doing things with me that would make an OnlyFans star blush. You get the idea. It was during one of those romantic interludes with the daughter of the general who commanded the local Air Force base that her mom walked in on us. She starts getting in my face and yelling, and then I realize that she is one fine-looking mom, and I persuaded her to join us. Mom had her thighs wrapped tight around my head, coming and screaming in pleasure when the old general strides in, so I didn't notice he was there. He knocks his little girl off of my groin where she was bouncing happily, pushes his wife off my face in mid-climax, and throws me off the bed before I can give him the look. He knocked me around pretty good days, so I couldn't get into his head. During the questioning and yelling that followed, I admitted that it wasn't his wife's fault. I said that I can crawl inside a person's head given the chance, and plan a suggestion. The suggestion worked like hypnosis, but it could go much deeper than hypnosis. It didn't take a military genius, no pun intended, to figure out that Homeland Security could use my skills for interrogation and to send the detainee back in to gather further intelligence. It seems that I could plant a belief in their head that those famous 72 virgins waiting for them in heaven, if they committed a selfless act for their religion, are actually 72 virgins, succubi. Just imagine how cooperative they become when they believe that such a large number of demonic women are waiting on him to die, just to suck his life force slowly, agonizingly away. I can make him believe that I can summon them to start on him within a minute, unless he tells us everything he knows. Since they are creatures of magic, I convince him they will be brought forth just as soon as he does anything that we don't want him to do, like neglect to keep us informed of his cells, plans, and activities. So I negotiated a deal with them for a 6-figure salary. They taught me to fly and gave me a small plane. It's all mine. They fuel it and maintain it as long as I use it to fly here and there to do their dirty work. I told them that I won't do any overseas work unless I just wanted to, as I wanted a normal life. So officially, my job title is troubleshooter. That way it's no surprise if I get a call in the night to fly out suddenly. Another part of their deal is that I would quit using my power for fun and pleasure after all. I'm top secret now. After a while, I discovered that I liked being around people that liked me because they wanted to, not because I told them to. I never used it on June, were several of the girls I dated before June. For that same reason, I wanted to be with someone because they loved, respected, and trusted me. For me. June, I see now, that is just not the case. I met June and we dated for a year and a half before we married, and in 2 months we would have had 2 years of a happy marriage, at least for one of us. I flashed an angry look at June. We even started talking about having kids, soon as there is no sense in having you tell your tale twice. I can hardly wait for Mark's wife to arrive so I can find out just what's been going on here. I glared at Mark while we were waiting. I thought I'd gather some photographic evidence of their affair in case I wanted it later. So I told her to kiss him and lick his chest passionately while I took pictures. I had about a dozen shots when I heard a car pull up in the driveway. I commanded her to quit and to go back to standing by the window. I set my camera down and went to the door as she was about to ring the doorbell. I opened the door, greeting her. I take it that you're Mark's wife? I'm Cliff Derringer, and I believe that is your husband, Mark, standing next to my loving and devoted wife, June. I wish I could say it was nice to meet you, Cliff. I'm Darlene, she stated, looking at the nude pair. She strode over to them, looked at Mark, who cast his eyes downward. Then she stood in front of June, who also suddenly found herself inspecting the carpet in shame. She smacked Mark across the cheek with enough force to make his head whip to the side. Have you no shame? Couldn't you at least put some clothes on? Darlene, that's my fault. I thought that they should stand there bare and in front of the window. That way they might find some shame and regret what they did, not just in getting caught. Look at that. She won't even let go of him. What kind of shameless woman did you marry? Cliff again? That's my fault. It makes him easier to control. Watch this. June squeezes Johnny hard. Ooh, why did you do that? What did I do to you, Mark? That's all your stupid question, June. He's up on the grip. But hang on. I caught Mark's eye for just a moment. That was all I needed. I want you both to tell us the truth now. You will put no spin on things to make yourselves look better. And you will tell us the whole truth. No half-truths. Let's start with Mark. What is the story here? We first met back in high school. Mark revealed as the possibility of this affair having started before our marriages entered both Darlene's head, in my own. We began dating just after the second semester started in January of our senior year. June and I hung with different crowds, so we hadn't really met before that. When we sat near each other in the second half-year science class that we both took, we hit it off. We were going steady almost from the beginning, and whenever we could make time, we were happily spending it with each other. It was just after Easter break in late March that we went all the way in the backseat of my car for the first time. After that, we were inseparable. We almost never even had an angry word for each other. We were completely in love. Then she left. It was the 2nd of May. I will always remember that day. I went over to her house in my car to pick her up for school, and her dad told me that she was gone and not coming back. Then he told me to leave and never ask about her again. I was heartbroken. I thought she ran away from me. I couldn't think of anything I had done to make her angry with me. Of course, I didn't listen to him. I went back many times, begging to be told where June had gone, why she left, who she left, with any detail that would help me find her and talk to her. One last time. I knew I would make it right with her because I loved her so much. Her mom and dad wouldn't tell me anything and threatened to call the cops if I went back again. That didn't stop me. And they did call the cops. They told the cops that she left and didn't want to see me again, and they wanted me to quit coming around and harassing them. The cop took me down to the station, and we had a long chat about lost causes and hopeless situations, and how one-sided relationships could turn into dangerous stalker affairs. When my folks got there, he released me with the understanding that I would be arrested if I went back there again. I was crushed, and I was alone and frustrated at every turn. I went through the motions of the last month of my senior year and graduated. After that, I joined the Army for 4 years to distract me from my pain and loneliness while I was in the Army. I met Darlene and married her, thinking I'd never see June again. When I got out, we moved back here. That was about 6 months ago. It was about 3 months ago when I bumped into June in the grocery store. We had coffee a few days later to catch up. That's when I found out what really happened to June. We kept meeting every week or two, and it was totally innocent. Well, maybe a little flirting, but nothing happened until 2 weeks ago. I got off work early and came over one afternoon when you were gone on a trip until late that night, and things got out of control. The next thing we knew, we were bare, out of breath, and had both just climaxed. We both swore that it could never happen again, but it did. About a week later, again in this house. Today was only the 3rd time. We're both very sorry and didn't mean to hurt either of you. Okay, June, now let's get your side of the story. The first part is just like you said. We met during our senior year of high school. We dated for several months, and graduation was just about a month away. Everything was wonderful. Until that day, I thought Mom went out on a couple of errands when I took the pregnancy test I bought because I missed my period. Sure enough, I was pregnant. I sat there on the end of my bed, crying my eyes out with the stupid test in my hand. When my mom walks into my room to see why I'm crying, I panicked and tried to hide the test stick from her, but she saw it. She was upset but held and comforted me until Dad came home. Dad was not so compassionate, quite the opposite. He went through the roof after he calmed down a little. He said that he would arrange for an abortion and that we would say nothing to anyone, especially Mark. I said that I couldn't kill a baby and that it was my body and my decision. That statement got things heated up again very quickly. After a while, we compromised. I could carry the baby to term and put it up for adoption, but I couldn't tell anyone. I had to leave that night for my Aunt Janice's home in South Dakota, which is a 7-hour drive. She had orders that I couldn't call anyone here. I couldn't even call Mark to say goodbye. That was one of Dad's terms that he wouldn't budge on a bit. If anyone found out, he would disown me and throw me out of the house and family, so I inquired. You have a child out there somewhere that you never mentioned to me? No, June replied, lowering her eyes. I went to Aunt Janice's and finished out the school year. Obviously, I couldn't go to any classes that fall as I would be showing for most of them, and that would have violated our agreement. After I started to show, I became a prisoner in her home. I could have no contact whatsoever with any of my friends from home or any other family member except mom and dad. And I was so pissed. I didn't even speak to them. My whole world became my aunt, myself, and the child growing within me. I think it was the depression that came over me that caused, at least partially, me to miscarry when I was about 6 months along. If I wasn't depressed enough before that, I surely was. After. After I got over the miscarriage. I returned home only to find that Mark had joined the army, and his family had moved away. They only stayed here until he graduated, as his dad already had a job in Ohio. I felt so bad that I just smoked around the house for several months, until Dad convinced me to at least get a job to get out a little. I got a job at Dr. Johnson's office and began dating after a few months. I had been dating for about a year when I met you, Cliff. Our life together was great, and you made me forget all about Mark until we ran into each other in the grocery store. Like you said. Well, isn't that just sweet and innocent? Snidely remarked Darlene. Such a sweet tale of teenage love, lust, and betrayal of others you both promised to love. If this is how you show your love, I should return the favor by kicking you in the balls. So you two were having quite the little affair, weren't you? Have either of you cooled down enough from your pubescent lust to consider when you were going with this relationship? Were you going to leave us for each other, or what? No, Cliff June replied quickly. I love you. I didn't want to leave you. Mark looked shocked that he was not her first choice, but said nothing. So did you think I would be accepting of your affair? Or did you think that you could quietly have your cake and eat it too? Cliff, I didn't want to hurt you. I wasn't sure how long Mark would be with me. After all, he and Darlene have a son. So you were willing to cheat me? Giving Mark what is rightfully mine and mine alone as long as he wanted. That makes it sound like this could last for years. If Darlene and I were blind enough to let it, and he was excited enough to have love with 2 women regularly, that also leads me to believe that you are in this emotionally as well as physically, and that if he was willing to leave Darlene, that you would leave me in a heartbeat. Does that sum it up, June? I hadn't really thought it through like that. That sounds like you meant to say that you didn't want to leave me unless Mark left. Darlene. Crap. That sounds like you really love me. What do you think, Darlene? Do I have a loving wife or what? I can't say that I'm any better off. Cliff. The loser here and I were dating for about a year when I got pregnant with Joey, our son. Now I'm thinking that's the only reason he married me. He was obviously still carrying a torch for June. I noticed a surprised look on Mark's face when June said that she didn't want to leave you. Mark, tell us what you were thinking when she said that. Mark began reluctantly. Well, I haven't thought it through because I don't want to leave you and Joey either. But part of me thought that maybe June and I could make a go of it. It just hurt a bit that she professed her love and loyalty to him like that. I guess I thought that she should only feel that way about me, since I'd never met Cliff. It was easy to pretend that he didn't exist, and that June and I could just pick up where we left off back in high school. I'm very confused because I still love you too, Darlene. I guess they just love each other more than they love us, Cliff. They didn't betray each other, but they sure betrayed us. Both. June and Mark began to protest that last remark when they realized that she could be right after a false start. June explained, it's a different kind of love. It's not more for you and less for him or the other way around. The love I have for Cliff is a mature, trusting love, a comfortable love. When I'm with Mark, I feel the pure love of a teenager, of a first love that never got to run its course. Do you remember when we married? We took a vow in front of quite a few people that we would love and cherish each other, forsaking all others. You made that promise that you would love only me, and I would love only you, comfortable or not. I don't recall a clause that allowed a little puppy lust on the side. So what other promises have you broken? Have you always been faithful to me since we married? Since we married? Yes. That seems to beg for more explanation. Have you ever done more than just flirting? Not since we were married. What about when we were dating? Well, when we began dating, we weren't exclusive. When I started dating you, I was still seeing the guy I was dating when you asked me out. Bill and I were still sleeping together until you and I agreed to be exclusive. And you knew about Bill. However, I didn't tell you about a couple of nights that Bill and I met just for love. He was pretty down when I dumped him for you, and I felt bad about it. So you began lying and cheating on me almost right from the beginning. How many are? A couple of times. We only got together 5 times, Cliff, and they didn't mean anything to me. They sure as heck mean something to me. They mean that you lied to me and cheated me out of time. That we could have been together. No, Cliff. They were only on nights that you were on a trip for work. We wouldn't have been together anyway. That means that you had to call him, to let him know that the coast was clear, and that you initiated the rendezvous. Even if you convince yourself that he wanted it, you wanted it too. That sounds like premeditated cheating to me. It wasn't like that. Then tell me how it wasn't like that. June hung her head silently in shame. When did you finally break it off with him and why? The last time was 4 months before we got married. It was a goodbye. Session, as he got transferred to another city with his job. Before that, our last time was only 2 months after we started dating. Crap. It could have still been going on whenever a convenient excuse came along, couldn't it, Bill? It's the anniversary of our first date next week. Let's get together when Cliff's gone next Tuesday. Or Bill Cliff's. And my anniversary is in 3 days, and he'll be gone that night until late. Why don't you come over and comfort me until he gets home? Oh, it's after seconds for Cliff. You're turning into quite the little cheater, June. Is there anything else you need to confess? June's head shot up and anger flared in her eyes as the remark hit home when she realized that her morals were, in fact, quite close to those of a destitute. Shame returned, and her head sagged. I have just one more confession, Cliff. On the night of my bachelorette party, I got pretty drunk. They hired a male stripper to give me a private lap dance, and things got a little out of control. Jenny, my maid of honor, joined us when they got the money up for a second dance, and we were both pretty worked up by that. I gave him a BJ in that room right there in front of Jenny. I now know that I was right in not trusting her. She was always just out for her own fun and not concerned about anyone else or anyone else's wedding vows. But I guess they didn't mean as much to you as I thought they did, as much as they meant to me. I'm so sorry, Cliff. I really am. It looks like I picked a real, loyal, loving partner. Let's see how well you did. Darlene. Mark, are there any times that you haven't shared with Darlene since you've been dating here that you aren't proud of? Have you done anything other than with my loving jerk of a wife that you wouldn't have done with her around? I went out with another girl once while we were dating, but we weren't exclusive yet. I have flirted some over the years, but I never did anything I'm really ashamed of. I didn't plan for this to happen. It just did. We just got out of control one day, and when we got away with it once, we did it again. It just made us both feel like we were in back high school again. Young, innocent, and in love. We really didn't want to hurt either of you. I'm very sorry to Darlene. Being sorry doesn't feed the tiger. I blurted out, Darlene, I believe that Mark didn't mean for this to happen, just like he says. However, my wife seems to be showing a pattern of behavior that tells me that she just can't keep her legs closed. I'm not the kind of husband that tolerates that crap, and I have made that very clear to you. I was quite angry now, and my anger came out in a loud rant. Wasn't our love life good enough for you? Darn. We're mated at least 3 times a week, usually 4. She was crying now. I'm not sure if she was beginning to realize how much she has screwed up our relationship, or if she was feeling like the tears would help make me more receptive to her wants and needs. Maybe it was that she felt she now deserved the title of destitute, as she never thought of her behavior in that way before. So did I not pay you enough attention? I'm not out of town more than 1, occasionally 2 nights a week, but I do get in late a couple more when I'm gone. I always make a special night for you when I get back. I've tried to make our life together as good as I could deny. Wasn't that enough for you? It was more than I could ask for, Cliff. This wasn't about you and I. It was about Mark and I and our tragic relationship. You did nothing wrong. You were a wonderful husband. I must have been too frigging wonderful. And you messed up my caring for you attitude. For an I will do anything for you, including stick my head in the sand while you screw around on me. Attitude. Did you think I was just a paycheck or a home provider that you could cast aside when some better opportunity comes along? Am I just a stepping stone to your next stud? No, Cliff. When I married you because I loved you and wanted to spend the rest of my life with you. I still do. I wish this accident had never happened. It's interesting that you call this an accident, seeing as how you invited him into our home, our island of sanity in this insane world, and screwed him right here. I guess that shows who has your respect. Because it sure as heck ain't me. You brought your adulterous lover into our home, where we made our memories and planned to make our life together. An accident happens once. June, not 3 times with the hopes of more. This was no accident. This was well out. Planned cheating. You have the morals of an alley cat in heat. So June, where do we go from here? Cliff, is there still a chance for us? I do really love you. She looked through her tears directly into my eyes, pleading with her eyes. I think in time I might be able to forgive you. I know I'll never be able to forget this. Also, It will be a long time before I can even begin to trust you again. Can you live with me? Looking over your shoulder, constantly calling you to see what you're doing and who you're with? It goes without saying that you will never, ever see Mark again. I'm not promising anything, but if we were to have any chance at all, you have to make that choice right now. I could make you be loyal to me under a mental threat that I would plant in your head, but I don't want to force you. That would just cause resentment. And I want to be with someone who genuinely wants to be with me. I want someone who will be faithful to me. And right now, I'm not sure you can be. I'm not just referring to Mark here. I'm not convinced you can keep your legs close to everyone but me, like a good wife should. You will have to convince me that you're worthy of the heartache you've caused. This has to be something that you want, and you have to want it more than anything or anyone else. I'm not totally sure that I want to make another try. After all the lies and betrayal I've discovered tonight, so it's not a certainty that we can make it work. Mark and all other men are out of the picture. You will be watched because you violated trust and showed an almost total lack of respect for me, for us, and you have to really want to make it work. Now it's crunch time. Which is it, him or me? She hesitated, looking back and forth nervously between Mark's face and mine. That's a pretty big decision, Cliff. I need your hesitation. Tells me volumes. It tells me that you don't love me more than him, and that even if you did choose me, it wouldn't be long before you began to wonder if you had made the right decision. Then one night, when you're alone and angry with me, your bad nature would take over. And soon, Mark would be getting calls from the wife that breaks promises to me again. The same wife who professes her love for me to my face will shove a knife in my heart as soon as my back is turned. Cliff, please give me another chance. She tried to come to me, but forgot her hand was still attached to him and dragged her bare lover halfway across the room before she recognized that fact and stopped dropping to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Please, Cliff, please. You made your bed. Now you'll have to lie in it. I think you've held him long enough, so let go. Her hand dropped, and a sigh of relief exited Mark's lips as normal circulation returned to his reddened member. Darlene, do you know what you're going to do about your marriage yet? No, Cliff, I don't. Turning to the bare man in the room, she asked Mark, It looks like your high school harlot is going to be available soon. Do you want to stay with your son and me, or make a go of it with her? It will be like Cliff described. I don't trust you anymore, and you'll have to show me that you're worth keeping around, assuming you want to. Like he said, you have to want to stay with me a lot. I'm sorry. Darlene. Darlene broke down, placing her face in her hands, slumping down on the couch. Fine, I exclaimed. Now we see everyone's true colors, don't we, Darlene? Some guys, when faced with a situation like this, would get their gun out and blow a hole in his wife and her lover. I paused to see the looks on their faces, which was worth the pregnant pause. Some guys would just beat the crap out of the both of you. Other guys would publicly humiliate the both of you by putting your nude pictures on a billboard or on the internet. But I'm not most guys. The two of them relaxed somewhat. However, you both will be punished. June, if you remember, my job made me get a prenup with you because of the plane and the nature of my job. Your first punishment is that you get only $2 or $3 grand out of our joint worth. That's it. If you had lasted a few more years, you'd have got a car. But you couldn't even make it to our frigging second anniversary. The prenup said that if either of us cheated, we'd get 10 grand or 5% of our total worth, whichever is less for each year of loyalty. After 10 years, we split evenly, but the plane is exempted. Of course you can have our bed where you screwed him, because I sure as heck don't want it. Secondly, grab his balls. After she reached up and gently surround his balls with her fingers. I commanded her to pull as she did. They seemed to effortlessly pop right off. Of course they didn't, but they didn't know that. June screamed and opened her hand to toss the imaginary body parts onto the floor. I had implanted in their heads that scenario only moments before. Your second punishment is also the first part of his. You caused him to lose his balls. He'll never have any more kids or love, and you will live with that knowledge. The second part of his punishment is that his tool will be the thickness of a pencil, and only 2 inches long when fully erect. You two didn't think you could have your fun without any consequences, did you? Mark gasped, as his image of his privates shrank as I described. Darlene looked at the three of us like we were delusional, and to her we were. She started to say something, but a quick look and a wink from me stopped her. Come with me into the kitchen, I whispered. We left the room while they tried to comprehend what had just happened. A quick version is that I'm like a super hypnotist, and they both fully believe that he now has no love organs to speak of. I know that seems a bit drastic, but he knowingly and wantonly cheated on his wife and child with a married woman. That is something that I never want him to do again, and this is the best way I can make sure of that. As you can see, though, I have done no actual or physical harm to either of them. I have to admit the punishment fits the crime. She smirked a little. Is that a smile? I sure didn't expect to see one of those today. Yeah, I guess it is a little out of place. It's a nice smile. Please don't lose it. Listen, this is going to be a tough time for you and Joey. Promise me that if you need anything or just want to talk, that you'll call me. I don't normally go around doing mean-spirited things like this. I'm not a bad guy. I like kids, and I want to help you. Who is going to help you? I'm just a guy with a very demanding job. I'll throw myself into my work for a while until I can get my head wrapped around it. Suddenly, you've gone from a complete family to a single parent with a young child. That's quite a big change. My life won't change near as much. I'll be fine. I hadn't thought that far ahead. Wow. I've got some major life changes to make, but my family is close, and I'll get by with their help. I don't know if I should kick Mark out or whether Joey and I should move out. It would be better to stay for Joey, but I can't afford that house. Can you talk it over with your folks? They know your situation better than I do, and they can think more objectively than either of us can at the moment. Yeah, I'll do that. In the meantime, I would tell him that he's no longer welcome at your place of residence in no uncertain terms. I'll be kicking June's bum to the curb as soon as you leave. I'm serious about wanting to help you and Joey. It could be a little therapy for me too. Hey, no strings attached. I'm not that kind of guy either. We both heard raised voices from the family room and walked back in to see the two of them, looking quite angry with each other. Why did you pull my balls off? I can't believe you did that. He made me do it. I had no choice. I didn't see him make you do anything. I did see you pull them off. Shut up, both of you. I interrupted them. Your actions did this to you both. You got what you deserved, Mark. I wanted to make sure you won't be breaking up any more marriages, and you won't. Your actions just made for divorce lawyers. Very happy. But your spouses and child? Very sad. This is the first time since we've been married that I'm actually glad not to have a child. Cliff, please, won't you reconsider? I'll try real hard. You made what should have been any easy decision. Assuming you love me the way you say that, you do. Instead, you hesitated. Part of you still wanted to have both of us, and that might work for you. Cheaters. But it won't work for me or Darlene. We know that for any relationship to have a chance, you have to not only love, but trust and respect each other. Maybe you do love us like you think you do, but we don't feel there's any respect or trust left. The reality of what had transpired finally dawned on her, and she fell down, sobbing wildly. I think she was feeling some of the hurt, my hurt. Now I hope you two will be as happy with each other as you thought you'd be, because you're getting the chance to find out. Darlene and I are done with you. Period. I gave them both a quick look in the eye and told them to forget what I told them about my job and my power of suggestion. I told them that they should remember today's events, except that he lost his balls when I walked in on them. She had his balls in her mouth, and I kicked him in the butt, causing him to fall on her, forcing her mouth closed and biting them off. His lack of testicles caused his willy to shrivel and be useless. She would still be responsible for his loss. I also told them they should publicly own up to their actions whenever anyone asked, and Mark should not fight their divorce. Darlene spoke up. Joey needs picked up from the sitter, and I've got to get home. Mark, I don't know where you're sleeping tonight, but it sure as heck isn't going to be with me. Do not come home tonight when you find a place to stay. We can make arrangements to get your stuff out of there. Goodbye, Mark. Cliff. With that, she picked up her purse and walked out the door. Darlene, wait! Mark yelled, and started to run out the door after her before he remembered his lack of attire. He turned and ran upstairs to where his clothes were. 30s later, he was mostly dressed and out the door as the door closed. I said, Don't just sit there, June. Get dressed and get out. You have 10 minutes or I will throw your bare butt onto the front lawn. Looking at my watch, I commented, The timer is running. You better get going. She looked at me, pleading again with her eyes. When she saw no sympathy, she slowly rose and went upstairs to pack. 11 minutes later, she came slowly down the steps, sniffling. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? You should have thought of that before you had your fling. You are no longer my problem. It hurt me to say that, to feel that way, and to look like an uncaring pig when I said it. There had already been enough hurt this day. I had to do it that way. It will make a cleaner break for both of us. I called your dad to come get you. He should be here any time. Oh no. What did you tell him? Did you tell him why? No, I didn't tell him anything. I'll let you tell him. After all, you did it. I told him to come get you because you won't be staying here anymore, and you needed a place to live. When you get settled, call me to make arrangements to get the rest of your stuff. Cliff, don't you love me anymore? I took a deep breath, saying yes, I still love you. And that's what makes this hurt so much. I loved you with everything I had. No one can just shut off that intense and emotion. I can't live with you anymore. And if you think about it for a while, I don't think you'd be happy living with me either. We'd be living with a constant reminder of this hurtful day. It may hurt more at first, but I believe it would be best to see each other as little as possible for the next year or so. We can begin to heal and get on with our lives. I'll see a lawyer and start the divorce procedure tomorrow with the prenup. It should be pretty cut and dry. Please don't try to fight this. It will only drag out the inevitable and cause us both more pain. She stood there looking up at me with her puffy, sad eyes and sniffled. I could see that she was thinking about what I had said. I wasn't sure if she was beginning to agree with me or was still trying to think of a way to change my mind when the doorbell rang. I expected to see Jim, my father-in-law, on the other side when I opened it, but he brought Mary, her mom, along. June ran into her arms and began to cry openly. If you've done anything to hurt her, I swear you'll be sorry you ever breathed. He was the kind of man that never got upset and could make a threat with no emotion. And you took it a lot more seriously than if he got in your face and screamed it. Jim, I haven't touched her. Her suitcases are right there, and she'll tell you what she did when she can stop bawling. You're kicking her out. What did she do to deserve this? I'd rather she told you, as it would hurt too much for me to go through it again. June and her mom were already headed to the car. Jim bent over and picked up her suitcases, keeping one eye on me the whole time. When he stood, he raised one eyebrow, then turned and walked outside. I closed the door and walked over to my recliner and fell into its comforting, soft cushions. It was then that I fell apart, just like my marriage had. I cried myself to sleep and only awoke by the sun shining through the bay window the next morning. It was time to get a shower and start the rest of my life. I called my boss and got the day off. Then I called the lawyer. I did all the standard stuff, including closing all our joint accounts and reopening new ones. The divorce really did go smoothly and quickly. She didn't fight it. A month later, I still hadn't heard from Darlene, so I called her. She and Joey moved back in with her parents, who had plenty of room both in their house and their hearts, and put their old house on the market. Mark and June did find a small apartment together, but Darlene seemed to think that they fought quite a bit. Darlene asked me one day about the hypno-suggestion that I gave Mark and June. Is it permanent? Well, he always believed that he has nothing in his pants. Never underestimate the power of denial. I laughed after a few years and several people. Probably doctors tell him that he does have something there. He may begin to question his belief and dispel the illusion. Then again, maybe not. That's not exactly an area that we guys talk a lot about. Now that the pain's not so fresh, I feel a little pity for him. Did you really have to do that? I just smirked. I became an adopted uncle to Joey and a friend with benefits to Darlene. Every couple of weeks we would get together. I would have liked to try for a fuller relationship with her, but she wasn't interested. Too many bad memories, I guess. When I attended Joey's 4th birthday party, I noticed a man that I didn't know was also present. I asked Darlene if she had found a new friend, and she said that she had. I told her that I certainly didn't want to get in the way, and she knew how to get hold of me if I was needed. She was married to him 7 months later. I took the new friend at the party as a hint. I read blow to the head that it was time I started dating again. And I did. I've been seeing this cute blonde that I met at the mall for several months now, and I'm beginning to trust her. Thanks to June's cheating ways, I'm a lot more suspicious than I want to be. I really hate that. But Dawn understands she's a real good gal. It's been 14 months since the big day, and I bumped into Mark in the grocery store. How ironic. He told me that thanks to his inability to satisfy June, after a few months, she cheated on him, and he kicked her out pretty much like I did. I felt kind of bad for him, as I knew just what he was going through. So Mark, do you think you learned your lesson? What lesson are you talking about? Will you ever cheat or have love with a married woman again? I wouldn't, even if I could. My ex-wife is constantly angry with me and keeps me from seeing Joey as much as I should be. My girlfriend that I cheated with cheated on me, and I'm all alone eating TV dinners every night. I can't even whack off. Some days I wonder why I keep going on. Cliff, I'm so sorry for my part in the affair. You need to keep going on because Joey does need you, even if you did behave like a schmuck a few times. I tell you what, I know some people that don't officially exist, and they can do some pretty wild things. but you'll never know they've even seen you. I can't promise anything, but I'll see what they can do for you on Friday night. Take home some whiskey. Drink it until you pass out, hopefully in bed so you won't see them. If they can do this. When you wake up, you'll have a nice surprise in your shorts. You can never breathe a word about this. Promise me. I promise I'll never say a syllable. Okay, and I'll make a promise to you. If I find out that you cheated on your woman again, or had love with a married woman other than your wife, I'll stop by and cut them off again. Do you understand me? Yes, that won't be a problem, I swear. Thanks so much, Cliff. If this works, I'll owe you a big one. If you ever need anything, I'll be there for you. I'm not kidding, man. You have no idea how much I've suffered. Well, let's see if they can help you out before you go throwing yourself in front of a bus for me. Remember? Don't say a word. I waved a finger at him as I walked away. I had already given him the look, telling him that when he awoke on Saturday, his equipment would be back, and he'd have a pretty good hangover too. It'd be worth it. About 6 weeks later, I was at the mall one day, and I saw Jim and Mary. I was going to just wave and keep walking, but Jim had other ideas. Cliff, I'd like a word, if I may. I shrugged a reply. It's your dime, Mary, and I want to tell you how bad we feel about what happened. Well, I feel that it's partly my fault because of the way we reacted to her pregnancy. If we'd done things differently, well, we just wanted to tell you that we're sorry and hope you can forgive our part in this. Jim, Mary, you didn't make her do anything. It's true that you could have been more supportive of her, but I know you. You thought you were doing the right thing. It's only hindsight that has 20/20 its vision. I hold nothing against you. So in my mind, there's no need to apologize. Thanks, Cliff. We appreciate that. I'd also like to tell you that we sent her to a shrink. At first, it was to help her get over the two of you, and then what she did with Mark. She had a lot of crap going around in her noggin, but she's getting straightened out for her sake. We take it as a personal favor. If you could go to one of her sessions. It's not her idea. It's her shrink's. She doesn't even have to be there, if you want. I know that it means opening up all the hurt again, but it would help her recovery. And that means a lot to Mary and I. Do you think you could do that for us? I just stared at them for a moment, looking into their sincere and hopeful faces. They were good people, and as good-intentioned people are, they made mistakes. I know I've made them as well. Their friendship still meant something to me. Something good. I sighed. Let me know when and where. I'll do my best to be there. They're hopeful. Faces lit up at once, saying, Thank you so much, Cliff. We'll call you as soon as she sets it up with Dr. Faraday. Her regular session is on Thursday. That's tomorrow. Can you make it next Thursday at 4? We made arrangements as well as a person in my job could, as my luck would have it. I was able to meet her there. I entered the office 5 minutes before the appointment, and she was waiting in the anteroom on the couch. She smiled pleasantly, but in a reserved, proper way. It made me think she was very unsure of her standing with me, and she didn't want to push it. I sat uneasily in the chair a few feet from her. Hello, Cliff, she greeted. You're looking well. I saw she was in a matching navy skirt and jacket with a white blouse underneath, unbuttoned only a few inches from her neck, hinting at the chest that I used to know so well, but not showing a thing. It was very professional, a new look for her. June, you look as good as I've ever seen you. This doctor must be doing you some good. Thank you. I want to thank you so much for coming today. It means a lot to me and my folks. I just don't want you to get your hopes up. This is not going to lead to a reconciliation. I can't live like that. I understand. I prepared myself for that. Though I'd be a liar if I told you that a small part of me still holds a bit of hope for us. I guess you heard about Mark and I. Yes, and please don't take it as a snide remark. But I have to say that it didn't surprise me. You have always had a high love drive, and not being able to do it with Mark. I figured that you were just a time bomb waiting to go off. I know what you mean. And Dr. Faraday has helped me see why I did those terrible things to you and Mark. He has helped me with a lot of things, like my pregnancy and miscarriage. We believe that's a big part of why I got out of control. I'm not sure how much I can help you. You seem to have made a lot of progress, and I don't know how I fit in. It's kind of like part of the 12-step program. This session I will admit the bad things I did to you and to us. Then I will address them one by one, apologize, and offer to try and make them right if I can. It's a healing process to get me to forgive myself. So you can, if that's even possible. The 12-step program is for addictions. I carelessly thought out loud. Yes, Cliff, I'm a love addict. She cast her gaze downward after Mark and I broke up. I went love crazy. I went to bars most every night and picked up strangers. I slept with coworkers, friends, and husbands of friends. Anyone who looked at me with a smile pretty much got a roll in the hay. I was drunk a lot in between the booze and the love. I ignored the pain. My folks found out and got me some help. Luckily, I didn't catch anything a shot of penicillin couldn't cure. I am much better now. I haven't had any love in over 3 months. Silence took over the room as the shock of this revelation showed on my face. Just then, the door opened, and the doctor ushered us into his office. This is not going to be easy, I told myself, and I was right. An hour later, we emerged from his office with a cleansed and purged feeling that I can only compare to an emotional double enema. "Cliff, I want to thank you again for coming today," she stated as we got off the elevator. "Do you think that we could get a coffee or a meal together?" "I don't think so. Not today, anyway. I have had enough turmoil. I want you to know that I feel bad the way things ended with us, especially since you kind of went off the deep end like that. Maybe someday we can be friends, but not today." "I understand, Cliff. I really do. I'd like it if we could become friends a lot. You mean a lot to me." As we stepped out of the building, she turned to the east where her car was parked. I noticed and said, "I'm parked this way, so I guess this is goodbye. Good luck in your recovery." I gave her a quick peck on the cheek and walked towards the setting sun. June watched his silhouette a little slumped sadly in the cool November chill. A tear ran down her cheek as she watched him walk out of